Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're at. Hi, everybody. I am filling in for Norm today. I think I've met some of you, but I'm our director of movement building with Strong Towns. Hopefully, you can hear our monthly test of the tornado warning that just went off over here in the Midwest. But we're glad to have you all. I think a lot of you are regulars at this, but for anyone who's new, welcome. This is our weekly Ask Strong Towns Anything conversation. We have a little bit of pre-submitted questions, but really this is your space to ask any questions that you might have. I'm joined by our usual Strong Towns technical expert, Edward Erfurt, who will be ready to answer your questions. I'll pitch in if I can, but Edward is really the expert here. Um, so to kick things off, we had a question from someone who's not here, but who had just submitted this, and he's a brand new member of Strong Towns. So we wanted to give this some attention. His name's John, who asked about water rights, and I think we could expand that to like general natural resource rights. And what questions would Strong Towns ask or want to explore if we were evaluating the costs and benefits of a city selling its water rights? Edward, any thoughts on that one to kick us off?
Yeah, I think from a strong towns approach, anytime we're talking to cities, anytime we're working with cities, um, we would generally classify this as a project or decision making point. Anytime that there is one of these decision making points, the things from a policy side, from high level, looking at this, the first question we should have is if this is going to be something that will have a fiscal impact on our city. Selling off your water rights or extending water to another community or allowing another community to come in and acquire wells for potable water, those sorts of things. The question really to ask your community is this something that is going to have a fiscal impact on us? Is this going to be something that impacts how we develop and grow as a community? And if it negatively impacts that, there should be caution. We also, on the same side, the reason people are asking for that is they're either a private sector or adjacent agency that's looking to utilize that resource. They're going to capitalize on it. They're going to make money, and that is an okay thing. But also, as we are negotiating and putting on constraints, we need to understand that whatever constraints or restrictions or caveats we add to that, that it also has to be profitable for that entity to pursue that. So, like with any project, with any development, with any decision making, a good project is one where both the city and the private sector both financially benefit from. So, thinking through that, water rights mean a lot of different things all around the country. So, there's probably some more nuances that John wants to throw into that. Um, but when we think through those sorts of things, we want to make sure that um, we're not selling ourselves short as a community, and that there are things that we could benefit off of from that as well. Because we both need to, both the private sector and public sector, both need to generate uh, capital stabilization off of that.
I
Are
know.
there? Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, Edward.
I was just going to open the floor and see if there's any other burning questions out there. Um,
Yeah.
I know we spend a lot of time each week doing Ask Strong Towns Anything. I liberally invite lots of people, even some folks that aren't members, because I think that once somebody participates in this, it's an opportunity for them to go and become a member of Strong Towns and get access and connected with everybody that's here, but all of the benefits that we all get from that. Um, yeah, Donna.
Yeah, I needed to unmute. I have a question. I understand. I'm trying to go through the finance decoder, which I understand the value per acre, but our community the property tax is only somewhere between 12 and 15% of our revenue. So we are basically a sales tax community.
Right.
And so we run into the conflict or argument from people that live in the affluent neighborhoods who pay more. Well, they pay more property tax, even though it's not proportional. They view that they pay more property tax, bigger home, larger uh, disposable income amount. So they will push back and say, no, our neighborhood generates more in a sales tax way. So, can you address that if you understand my question?
Yeah. Mhm. I hear this a lot, and I see this work coming from Urban 3. The mapping, uh, it started with value per acre, and then when we look across municipalities, there are many ways that municipalities generate continual revenue. And what Urban 3 has started to talk about in their language, and you'll see it in how we are describing this, uh, in addition to value per acre, they talk about land productivity. Where are the most productive areas within a community? Uh, those are things that could be mapped. In different states, how we get sales tax information is a little bit more difficult because of the way that is collected. The sales tax also is um, it's separated out. Some places you can get it in a finer grain detail where you can look at it at a neighborhood type scale, more than just the zip codes. So all of that type of data, getting it out there. Generally, as we start to look at sales tax, people may say, "I'm more affluent. I'm spending more in my community." Uh, the studies that I have seen from Urban 3, there's not a direct correlation on wealth and spending. There are many wealthy people that are very frugal. There are also many poor people that rely on high spending. So, where an affluent person maybe only goes out to dinner once a week, somebody that is in a lower economic class may be buying McDonald's every night for dinner.
Okay.
Um, so there's no direct correlation to that. So we can kind of map those things out. During the pandemic, there's a lot of mapping and analysis, especially in sales tax states, to look at that aspect of
Okay.
revenue because people were at home and they were buying everything through Amazon or their online services or they're having their groceries delivered. And that led to pockets in those areas, but there wasn't that direct correlation. The other aspect that comes out of looking at productivity of land is also looking at expenses. So when you overlay these different pieces, you have to start to outline, and it's really hard in cities to do. The work that Urban 3 did in Lafayette, Louisiana, where they looked at what they mapped out every manhole cover, every service call, every public works, every time they trimmed the trees. They were able to get to that fine grain detail, but that took a lot of work because the public works departments are working within the budgets they have. They will fill the space. If they don't have enough funding to do something, they'll figure out the duct tape and bubble gum to make it work and kind of make the city happen. They, there's no city where they're working at the platinum level of service of all the needs. When we look at these particular neighborhoods, yes, you may have an affluent area. Um, when I did some mapping in Medicine Hat in Alberta, Canada, their most affluent neighborhood had very high value per acre. So it's like, wow, this is like a pretty productive. You would describe this as a productive place because it's generating high value per acre. But then when you looked at the road miles to service every house, it was 10 times that of any of
Okay.
the more compact walkable neighborhoods. So all of that productivity gets sucked up almost to the negative in a city like that. And Medicine Hat, it ended up, they ran all the numbers, and every one of those suburban homes was a $10,000 annual loss to the city, meaning the services provided and the maintenance obligations for each of those homes um, was a $10,000 fiscal loss to the city. So when you
I
look at
think,
the productivity, it's also all those maintenance obligations with it.
okay, I think that really makes sense, especially how you explained with medicine that we don't count roads in our financial stuff, which I knew that that was a problem all along. Um, but what I'm referencing and what some people are referencing is our comprehensive plan, which was put together about 10 years ago. So it's 10 years old. The Northeast quadrant, which is where there's a lot of commercial, um, the high affluent neighborhoods, that is mapped out in a color green, which means lots of money. But then the and the
At least they
poorer,
get the right color.
yeah, but then the poorer neighborhoods are colored red, and part of that is they do count the fire and police response in the poor neighborhoods, but they don't cover roads in any neighborhood. As a matter of fact, I've tried to get information. We have like between 4 and 800 road miles in our community. And in budgeting, I've tried to ask the question, well, if we have that many miles, how much does it cost to replace a mile or resurface a mile or whatever? And I couldn't really get an answer. But giving the city or giving the public works or allocating the public works 10 million only covered, I think, eight, can't be eight, must
You're
be,
probably only getting you probably yeah, you with $8 million or $10 million, you're probably getting around 8 miles of repaving annually.
yes, yes, which, that is so insignificant. But anyway, thank you for the information. I'll talk to people about the productivity instead of using the phrase, what is it, value per acre. I think that would make a little more sense.
Yeah, value per acre is a tool, but in your community, it's only a small percentage of your revenue coming in.
Right.
Big chunk coming out of sales tax. So we've got to think differently about it.
Okay.
Um, I'll show you when it comes to all the road stuff. This this is what we came across in Lake County, Florida. This is their roadway division. So in their annual budget, they're really excited because in Lake County they were able to fund a bunch of road maintenance. So they are funding $2 million a year in road maintenance. They fell behind in some of the road maintenance, so they went out and got a bond, and that gets them like got them $8 million a few years ago to go catch up on all this work. Um, so their budget it looks all right, and in the decision making that the county commission is making in the budget, this looks like oh we're putting enough, and when we need to, we'll tip a little bit more in. But in their highway division or the roadway division, they threw out a bunch of numbers in here. They showed how many centerline miles they had within their municipality. So Lake County, Florida is just outside Orlando. It's actually just west of Disney World. So this lane miles in visual perspective is the distance from Disney World to Boston, Massachusetts. That is what the county is obligated to maintain. That number continues to climb in an exponential rate annually. Um, they also had in here previously some numbers, and I think they took it out because we pointed to it. They had in here what it costs to maintain all of their roads. Yeah, they've taken it out. They put in there that it costs them 250,000 or $300,000 annually to maintain 1 mile of road in Lake County. That didn't take into account the drainage, the sidewalks. It was just like pavement work. And they said, "Oh, well, that number is like We put that number up there, but we're behind because the number came out before 2020, before all the inflation hit. When we looked at if we just took their lane miles and we then took what it costs to maintain it, and then you annualize it over the 25 years that they identify in their budget and their manuals of road maintenance, the result was $18 million annually is what they needed in Lake County to maintain their roads.
Yeah.
It's not in the budget. When we presented these numbers, people looked at us cross-eyed. They said, no, we're in good fiscal health. We said, no, you actually are in a $16 million annual deficit on roadway work.
Yeah.
And that compounds, that's $16 million this year, plus $16 million next year, compounding out that at 25 years, um, I don't have the slide, but it was like over $1 billion of
Mhm.
deferred maintenance on their roadways.
And that's without inflation.
That's without inflation. That assumes there's no more roads added.
Yeah.
That assumes like nothing else. Just this moment in time, we're not going to change one bit, and we're going to keep through that. So the problem was actually not an $8 million problem. It was $1 billion problem. And by showing that, we made it look like their budget diagrams. It was Strongtown's colors, but looked a lot like it was in their budget sheets. And when we presented to the public, they thought it was in their budget document, and we had to spend a lot of time to explain it's not. It should be. It's not. It should be in all of your presentations because places like Lake County, the county commission is making decisions on investments on new liabilities, thinking they have fulfilled their obligation for maintenance, and they haven't. So when they go and they decide to accept new roads in a neighborhood, or they decide to widen some roadway in the county, or accept a new park or new community building, all of those projects are competing against the maintenance of things they've already obligated in Lake County.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Well, we had
it's hard
just
to
one
get
more.
those numbers.
Yeah, one more thing. Several years ago, I had requested that the finance director give reports monthly to the council with the idea that before they make a decision, they should be, well aware of, what the budget looks like, what the revenue looks like, before they start adding extra expenses or whatever. But now with that decoder out, I would like to have the budget director use that, not necessarily put the graphs up without an explanation, but use that internally maybe in order to then present in a very high level way to the council that says, yes, we use the ARPA funds and that has helped us, but we're leveling off on revenue. So, watch your P's and Q's when you're spending. You know.
And we would love, Strong Towns would love to assist you with that conversation.
Okay.
Um, there are other elected officials, they don't want to share that they've done this with their finance directors because the thing that comes out of it is that we've taken the time of multiple years of poorly informed decisions. I'm not going to say they're bad decisions. They're decisions that were made without enough information to understand all the consequences. We made those decisions that now we're realizing today. And as other elected officials have looked at this with their finance directors, because of the cash accounting that local governments do, each year looks good.
Hmm.
But over time, we're not seeing where these deficits are and where we're falling behind or where we are becoming vulnerable to the swings in the market. When you look at the long term, you or I, when we're looking at our budgets, our own personal budgets, or if we have a business and we look at the business budget, we are thinking more in that accrual system of where, yeah, it may be a slow year this year. Maybe we didn't have enough building permits. Maybe the economy, inflation hit, and people weren't buying stuff. But we're aware of that, and we're going to make that up next year. So, in a lot of communities, if you look in the timeline on those charts, starting in 2008 to 2012, you can see where a lot of communities on the financial decoder stabilized. If you were in any city hall or local government at that time, that's when people were jumping out of the windows. That's when we were cutting to the bone because of the market crash. So when nobody could sell their homes, there were no transactions. Our cash cycles were collapsing. What was happening in cities is that they stopped digging at that point. They
Mhm.
couldn't further any of that expansive growth. They had to think smarter about how they used their funds, so they became smarter. If we were to do that in the accrual accounting, we would see that, okay, for 4 years or 3 years, we're short on our revenue projections. We would go out when the market started to get hot again. We would have been very nimble and austere in our spending to catch up with the lost revenue moving forward. So as revenues went up, we would capture that to recoup and fill back where we were short in those years. But because we didn't, and we saw lots of transactions, instead of the chart going up, it actually goes down pretty quick
Oh,
as soon as
okay.
the market hits. And that is the development pattern. So lots of cities are seeing that. Using the tool, the financial decoder, it helps to show you that long game. And it's interesting in different cities where decline starts to occur on those charts, where you start to fall under the lines. And when local conversations ask us about that, we ask them to go back to the budget documents. um, Usually in the very beginning, there's a letter from a city manager or the mayor that talks about all the wonderful things that have happened in the city in the last year, and it outlines different things. And it's kind of the great little history piece. And you can see, like, maybe that's the year that they were celebrating the new 12 subdivisions that opened up in the city, or that was the year that they invested in the new industrial park or sports center, or that was the year they were able to address road maintenance through a new bond. They talk about those things and they celebrate it because in that year that helped make the windfall in that 1 year accounting. But if we look at many of those stacked up, we can see that that's where we started to dig, and that will help us make these decisions. Um, Again, the decisions we'd be making that would be in front of you as a council member are longer term decisions looking at that longer term past. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we would love if you need our assistance in that, we would love to talk through that
Okay.
and help that get adopted. We would love for every city to include the financial decoder in the budget discussions that you have. Show it in there's I don't know if your city has this, but lots of cities have the citizens guide to the budget. It's the fewer page,
Uh,
smaller word package they send out.
we actually have, I think, a video, Budget 101. And even during the budget process, the finance director comes and does chunks of the budget at a time rather than
Yeah,
the whole thing, which is very helpful. I mean, we're very transparent. We have a wonderful finance director, but that little piece of information that's missing, even something as simple as, guess what, the roads aren't counted in this budget as a liability. People
yep,
view it as, oh, we're doing all this work on the roads, isn't that wonderful? And I'm like, yeah, it's wonderful, but so yeah.
yeah. There's lots of things. The only things that are normally kept in your depreciating value of your liabilities, it's like police cars,
Mhm.
uh, some building pieces. Maybe if you have an aquatic center, there's some of that, but that's usually under what the actual demands are.
Mhm.
They're under reporting those pieces. Yeah, just looking at these things, it helps to give a broader view. Uh, we used to describe it as transparent local accounting. It's not that it's not transparent in the sense that finance directors are hiding anything or elected officials are hiding anything. All the numbers are in front of you. There's just so many numbers. It's really hard to translate what it is. And even in we talk about the finance decoder versus we used to call when we started it out, it was the budget decoder. Well, the numbers are not actually coming from your budget; they're coming from your city finances, from your CAFR. So, like, we've been trying to change our terminology because I will tell you, there's no way to get faster to an angry person than to talk about their finances. And the finance directors are very sensitive to the numbers they put together. They're under a lot of stress to fulfill those budgets. So when Strong Towns comes and noses around, that gets them really concerned. Transparency is a word that they is just they fear that like no other because they are in fact very transparent. It's just hard to understand to translate what they're showing. They also don't like it when folks come and say, well, this is a result of the growth Ponzi scheme, because again, that's leading to some sort of nefarious act. It's not there. It's the operating system we're in. This is a way for regular people to understand it. It's not a criminal act. It's just understanding the cycle you're in. So yeah, Aaron, you've been very patient.
And go
What's
for
your
it.
question?
Yeah, no worries. So the city here at City Hall, we're looking at um, putting together some public transit options. We have one shuttle that Walmart provides actually in our college town. It's the only free Walmart shuttle in the world, but it's not quite fulfilling the needs we have anymore. This semester, we're hitting 25,000 students, and so and we've seen in the last 5 years a lot more of those students bringing cars. And so, anyway, I was curious what your thoughts are on when you're using public transit in a strong towns way. How do you um, know how to scale it for the city? Like if it's supposed to multiply wealth, the difference between a fixed route um, and maybe something that's more like rapid transit, or I know there's a big push for like those little micro mobility shuttles. You can like it's like public subsidized Uber, but anyway, I'm doing a lot of research right now for the mayor, and I'm just trying to
Yeah.
think. I'm just curious what advice you have. Yeah.
Before
Um,
you go, Edward, I'll just put in a plug. We haven't like advertised this yet, but October 24th, 11 a.m. Central. I'll put it in the chat too. We're going to be doing our monthly member exclusive conversation with Jarrett Walker, who is a big transit expert in the Strong Towns kind of universe. And he and Chuck will be talking in depth about this exact question. So, for cities of all sizes, but you're in like a smaller college town, is that right?
Yeah, there's about 25,000 students, and the total population is probably around 45.
Okay, cool. Gotcha.
so when we talk transit, and I'm transit aware, I am not a transit expert. There are different ways that transit is described within the experts in the transit realm. The types of busing systems and transportation systems you're describing generally go to a discussion of how do we fund them, and we look towards federal funding to fund that.
Mhm.
What you will find is the federal funding for each of those is will make you do really dumb things. So in each of those transportation systems, the way federal funding is set up for transit, it would require you in really general terms, and somebody will correct me and send me to the right document, but in really general terms, what it does is it would require you to separate all of those systems to run as independent systems to be eligible for the federal funding to support. And you'll find highly efficient systems that don't have enough money to operate and they collapse on themselves. So I wouldn't get caught up in all of the terminology with all the pieces. Um, the there's lots of really smart transit operators that can provide transit of moving people to destinations efficiently and within whatever means are available. When when you're thinking about transit from a city side, and I don't know if you currently have transit or not, um, but thinking through transit from a strong towns approach, really looking and seeing what the city could provide with the resources available is a good starting point. Um, our I'm in a small community. It's a rural county, and we have a transit provider, and they were really smart in their transit decisions. So the buses we have are smaller. It's a smaller bus. They did a lot of work on surveys to figure out where transit riders needed to get to, where would be the destinations, and where they're coming from. They did a lot of surveys in that exercise. So they ride the bus, they'd hang out the bus stops, they went to anywhere, the employment centers, they went to the housing neighborhoods. Um, Anybody would meet the demographics for their ridership within their community and got their feedback from to figure out where they were going. Are you going to the VA? Is there a grocery store that everybody goes to? Is there another transit location? And they started to map those out. And they've been flexible and observant in how they're routing their buses. So how can they be most efficient in the bus route, knowing they have limited resources? How do they get the bus stops where they need to be that people will use them? Um, the bus drivers are highly observant. So we share lots of stories where communities have gone and built bus benches because that was needed at a stop. Our bus providers, they're using a lot of private property locations, like to take a municipal bus onto private property. There's a whole bunch of permission that has to be given for that. And there's a lot of concerns from those shopping centers with the buses being there and all the things that would, whether it's tearing up or who they bring or trash at the stop, taking up parking spaces, all those pieces. Our drivers are very observant of how people are using the different bus stops because they want lots of people to be there. So if they identify that there needs to be a bench, they work to get a bench. If there's lots of trash, they work to get a trash can there. Um, so working through those pieces. The other thing with the university in town, they have access to lots of resources too, and I wouldn't underestimate their types of resources. I've also worked in like resort destination places that uh, fixed bus line wouldn't make sense to go from a resort to the beach or the downtown to the hotel quadrant. There are lots of private ways that you can provide that same service that's not necessarily a bus service that you can also be innovative on. So these smaller charter buses, we found in the times that we've looked at that were highly affordable compared to a federally funded busing system.
Mm.
So we had to come up with money. If it was resort oriented, it then you can be creative because maybe the hotels are willing or the chamber is willing to invest the money to run the loop of the bus. You give them some leeway of when it runs. So it's the peak stay times. It doubles up when there's events in town. So thinking through that there are other levels of busing that can be done or transit that can be done uh, to make that happen. But yeah, really, I think the stuff that Chuck and Jared are going to talk about in this member exclusive thing is going to really it's going to change the way people think about transit in regards to the federal funding link. That
Mm.
maybe the way that that's set up is um, not the most efficient way for us to deal with transit. So that's probably a lot of stuff. I don't know if I actually got to the answer you were looking for, but I would think of all the options on the table. I would align up all your partners on the table, and I wouldn't hamstring yourself if transit is important in the community to just the one federal try to fix all. There may be more efficient ways or collaboration of resources you have to achieve your goals. Um, I spent some time at Ohio State. Ohio State at one point bought every student a pass on the Columbus's bus system. So it was a pass through to subsidize the bus system. A large number of riders were students trying to get to Ohio State University. So that was a way to subsidize busing, and then the university had some skin in the game to direct where the buses went
Mm.
to do that, and then it became an amenity for students. So some of that kind of creative thinking too, because you'll figure out the best system, whatever bus, micro, or call on demand service in there, and then it'll be funding. So just thinking through those, be open, bring your partners, especially early in the process, to the table.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate that. Well, thank you.
Yeah, let us know how that's going, and if you need more. Between Rachel and I'm sure we know a bunch of transit folks that are really sophisticated in that, um, and happy to try to get you connected with those as you're working through those.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Anyone else have a question? And Aaron, I'm checking because I know we've done at least one, if not two, locomotive sessions in the past about transit and specifically like small scale transit efforts. I went to. I remember riding the bus in my college town when I was in college in Walla Walla, Washington. Kelly, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My question was the value per acre. I know the Urban 3 analysis, they do the analogy of the gas tank, like how many miles and how big your gas tank is. And I was wondering if there's also another analogy that we could use, because that one's a little confusing for me to explain to people and sometimes for them to grasp. And I was wondering, do we have any other analogies for that?
We do. Um, Trying to think. I I can't think of any right off the top of my head, but the key takeaway is understanding when we talk about productivity, understanding the numbers that we use. And you've probably seen a lot of times um, people can use graphs to lead you to interpret things that the numbers aren't showing. Like a lot of studies will say things to lead you to a conclusion that's not actually what the numbers are showing. There's the same thing on you've seen the globe and the flat maps, and if you actually do there's another map that's the actual geographic form of where everything's at, and you see the world in a completely different way. If you were to line up a flat map, you'd find out that Alaska really isn't larger than Russia or whatever it is. Like because we've drawn it in a way, we have this perception to the world. What the value per acre analysis shows in productivity, it's an apples to apples comparison of the amount of area consumed and the output of productivity to it. So the gas tank analogy is that you wouldn't buy a car based off of how big the gas tank is. So the bigger the gas tank, I want a Mac 10 truck because it fills 300 gallons of gas, but it's only yielding out 2 miles per gallon. I get the Prius. I'm not going to buy a Prius based off the gas tank because it has a 5 gallon gas tank, but I'm getting 300 miles out of it. Um, so that's what they're trying to show. I'll look through. I know we've done a couple different videos, and Urban 3 shared it in a couple different ways. But the fundamental component of it is productivity. We're trying to get the most out of the minimal amount of consumption possible when we think through this.
Eli, that's an interesting point. Just like farming yield breaker. One of the ways that I say it, which isn't like a metaphor, but I'll just say like, we're looking at how much this property pays in taxes for the amount of resources it consumes, like sewer, electric, street frontage. I mean, that's still like technical language, but like just really trying to communicate like we're talking about how much this pays back based on how much it is using up. I don't know, but we could definitely use some more.
Yeah.
It's more middle.
Urban 3 uses the farming analogy a lot too.
Okay.
So when we talk about agriculture, um, Joe used to have a slide set and to show like when we talk to farmers, they know what the most productive crop to put in their field. Like they know what needs the least amount of fertilizer, the least amount of water, the least amount of care to yield stuff out. And he shows different things and he's like, look, if you had a field of pot, it's going to be way more productive than a field of corn. Like, so when we talk about productivity, they're taking the same amount of area, but one is highly more productive. It's going to generate a higher yield of value off of that work. That can only be used in certain audiences. So
Yeah.
when you think through, there may be other agricultural things, especially talking through with things that people know that if it's more compact, it yields out more out of it. Um, but yeah, just thinking through those pieces. That is a really good question. I know a lot of these sessions, we go through these. Many of you have been at many of these sessions. I want to make a pitch because on Monday, Chuck and I are starting off with the next round of the Strong Towns Accelerator. This is a really in depth, it's 12 weeks, it's 6 evenings with Chuck and I and 15 other individuals that we go through something just like this. In the accelerator program, uh, in this particular round, we're going to go through the book Bottom Up Revolution. And our objective is to give individuals the tools they need to accelerate change in their community. So, in each of the sessions, in advance of the session, there's chapters of the book that we have everybody read. We have an online academy similar to the Strong Towns 101 course, but it's an academy with some more in depth material, additional resources and tools. We do a small presentation in our meeting together, and then it's a discussion. And it's really in depth. We record them so people can come back and review it. It's private, it's only shared with the participants and Strongtown staff. And in the course, what we train as you go through it is how to create what we describe as an action plan, but it's that 4-step process for public investment. So lots of people come with many, many things they want to tackle in their community. We work through the Strong Towns approach to help narrow down to one to help work through and build the muscle strength to go and tackle big things in communities. I'm sharing this and I want to go in depth with it today just because we have a couple of seats left. So if you're interested in that or know somebody in your community that would benefit, that really needs the extra one-on-one time, they want to hang out with Chuck and I, they want to get some personalized coaching, you should go to strongtowns.org/accelerator. Um, there is a cost to it. We have some scholarships available and we have open seats. So if you're willing to take the time to go and dedicate to the accelerator program and cost is the only thing holding you back, contact us. The email that's at the bottom to ask for financial assistance is Rachel, but you can also contact myself. I'd like to fill the seats, and I hate anybody to miss an opportunity to do more in depth. And I know many of you come every week to Ask Strong Towns Anything, and I think you all would find a benefit in taking the time to really do that. So, and Accelerator, we market it for everybody. I will tell you, everyone that I have talked to, they feel that they're a beginner. They're just an everyday citizen in their community. They're afraid to speak up. Uh, everyone I talk to, they are strong leaders in their community and are and if they've made put that interest out there, I'm telling them right away that you already have what it takes to take that particular program. Um, so we have a combination in this particular group. We have municipal staff, strong citizens. We have somebody that went through our cohort program that's going to participate in that. We have elected officials. It's a broad variety of folks in all different types of experiences. So it'll be a really rich in the discussion and the struggles that people bring forward. Um, it includes coaching. So all the accelerators, they get a special link to my calendar to set up time that we go through and help to develop their action plan. As you develop the action plan, um, we then will set you up with one of our Strong Towns technical experts, depending on who on our team can best help you think through that and work through it. And in those particular accelerator coaching sessions, some of them are one on one, but others have brought in members from their local conversation, people on their planning or development team. Elected officials have brought in other technical professionals that they're working with, where we provide an opportunity to kind of walk through all these things. There's cool things that have come out from the accelerators. We haven't shared them all in all of our writing because they're all these things take time, but they're really impressive. One of our accelerators is a had just been hired as the economic development director in a town that had a prized, well loved economic development plan that said do everything all at once. And it was like, we can't do everything all at once. We have to be focused. But everybody was scared to tackle the actual plan and change it or work through one other than the other. Uh, through the action plan, this particular individual was given the tools of how to communicate in the neighborhood to explain where the most productive places were and help the community come to where they would have the first success to take advantage forward. So, really untangling a very complicated, both political and citizen issue in a community, and being the first person, this is your first role in your new job. So, really dicey stuff. Um, we also had a strong citizen that wanted to advocate for walking and pedestrian activities within their community. They have inspired a dozen crash analysis studios in their community, showing people here are the tools you have to deal with the dangerous streets. He wanted to create kind of a bigger conversation about pedestrian walking and has created reflectors, little reflectors that look like keychains that can go on backpacks. These, there's a two-part process to it. He's giving them out to homeless and to students so they can put them on their bags. So there's some reflectivity when they're out walking around. They're also selling them. And on the reflector is a logo and direction to the program that he's starting to raise awareness of walkability. Now, this reflector is not going to stop a car and may not be the most visible thing. But what it is going to start to do is to create an identity and a club throughout the community of others that also believe in walking. So right now, where individuals may not see that, there's now going to be this visual thing, almost like having baseball caps for a sporting team in town. Um, so there's a wide variety of things that are coming out of that accelerator program, and I just want to pitch that. Rachel's seen everybody that's in the room here today, so anybody's live on the call, uh, she's going to know that if the finances are a barrier for you to join that. If there's others, if you need me to explain it to somebody else or you want to talk through that anymore, you can email me. It's edward@strongtowns.org. There's some urgency to this because we start Monday, but I'm happy to bring you in. Even if you miss the first session, we record it. Happy to get folks in there. Um, but I think that there is really good stuff happening in the world that, uh, from all the questions you ask, it's a more structured way, more focused piece that I hate to have one empty seat for the accelerator. So I don't know what we're up to now. I know that we don't have that many left, but I don't want any empty seats if we have folks that really want to dedicate the time to that. Um, The accelerator program, it's over 12 weeks. We meet every other Monday in the afternoon, which is depends on where you are in the country when that hits on the clock. It's I think 90 minutes we meet to go through each of those sessions. So there's only 6 times that we are together, and it's every other Monday starting the 15th. So we roll through, and I think we have one federal holiday that hits on this cycle. But it's on the website at strongtowns.org accelerator. But feel free if there isn't enough information there for you to reach out to Rachel or I.
It starts at 3 p.m. Central. Yeah.
It's a good group. The group so far is really good, and I want to enrich it with more. So, uh,
Anyone have a final question before we sign off? I think we've covered, like, I just looked through our pre-submitted questions. And I think we've gotten to the ones that you all have previously asked. I know, Kelly, you had a question a couple of weeks ago about what is Strongtown's definition of wealth. I think that one was covered, right? Okay, cool. Just want to make sure.
there's some other things upcoming that make sure you're getting and taking a look at your member link email that's coming out.
Yeah, Tuesdays, that's your crucial email to pay attention to.
This Tuesday, there was a code in there. We've had it a couple times for upcoming locomotive sessions. Our board this year thought it was so important for our members to have access to the material that we're sharing in the locomotive sessions that they're providing a code for all of you to get in without having to buy a ticket. If you have friends that you think would benefit from this, usually throughout the year, we get the calls. Norm gets them all the time. Hey, I've got this person. They really need to see that locomotive session. What is the code? Or you want to have a group showing of it with a whole bunch of people. What is the code? Instead of asking for that, just send them the member link. Have them go become a member for $1. Get some access to everything else. And not only will they have access to that locomotive session, they'll be able to participate in all the engagement. Norm does some after party stuff. We do the after session, which is kind of a session like this.
Debrief, yeah.
Yeah, debrief. We can go through. Many of our speakers stick around for that, so you can ask them the questions maybe you didn't have a chance to in the session. But that gets them engaged. Uh, Bernice up in Buffalo, New York, she had her first local conversation session. Now, upstate New Yorkers are going to be a little bit more direct than maybe other parts of the country. But she put a big QR code on the screen and she goes, "You all are here. This means something to you. You better pull out your phones and become a member." And she literally didn't take it off the screen until she saw there was enough members that had clicked onto it. That may be more aggressive than others, but unless we share this with the people around us, we won't build the team that we need on the ground because none of this work can you do alone. So really take advantage of that and introduce them to all the things. With that, we also have our monthly member session coming up. Rachel shared with that. Um, there's going to be some really explosive things coming out of that. There is a project that Chuck and I have been working on that is part of that messaging that Wade has contributed on that will be national breaking, heads will explode type stuff. So I'm holding out. I'm super excited about it. I'm holding out. I'm waiting for Chuck to make all the formal announcements for it, but really rethinking some important aspects in how we finance our roadway systems. So I'll leave that pitch out there. It's coming. Make sure you get registered for that session.
Yeah, and then this month's member exclusive is next Friday. I'll put the link in for that. We'll be premiering the new Strongest Town video featuring Marion, Ohio. If you were following along with that contest earlier in the year, our video creator Rachel Leonardo went to Marion and made this fantastic video, which we're super excited to share with the world. So we'll like do the official premiere on next Friday, and then we'll have a conversation with Rachel, James Walker, who was our kind of Strong Towns cheerleader from Marion, and he works for Marion as well, for the city. And yeah, we're excited about that conversation and getting
And
to
the
share that video.
premiere, this is what's really exciting. The premiere of the video release, Chuck will be in Marion with our strongest town.
Yeah, we're doing like a pre showing
And
with them on
they've
next
got a
week.
they've got a theater rented out. They've got the place booked, uh, line around the building for people to get in to see this. This is not the snippets that I've seen of it is not all the rosy picture of the perfect town. This is something I think we can all relate to in all of our communities. So there's some important messaging that comes out of it in this strongest town that I think we can all connect to. And I can tell you the work that is ongoing. It's got to be every week, if not every other week, an email from Marion of things that they are working on. And it's tough stuff. But seeing those things and helping them work through it and think through differently, they've used the strongest town contest to go and elevate a conversation that they'd already started in the community that they needed that extra push forward. So you'll we'll soon in the next few months start to go through and start to pitch out to folks that we want submissions for strongest town. Uh, this is a great place to ask about that stuff. Is that of an interest to you? Think about it. You all are in the front lines of this work. If you are interested in elevating your town through this, now's a good time to start thinking about it. And I love Marion, but Marion has a dark past that it's working itself through. Uh, I was working with them to look at their parking, and I looked at their downtown. They told me they had a parking problem, and they were concerned about parking rates. And when I look at their downtown, their parking problem is not a lack of parking. Their downtown is parking. So those are the sorts of things. All of these are towns that are working to be a strong town. They're doing the work step by step, incrementally to do this. So I'm extremely excited about that video coming out and the work they're doing in town.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting contrast too because last year's winner, oh my gosh, what town in Vermont was it?
But Battleboro,
Yeah, Brattleboro, which you know it was a really amazing, inspirational town. And our video creator went and made a video about it. But it is also just like a beautiful, idyllic, like place that everyone would want to go on vacation. And, it just shows that like there are all different ways to be a strong town. Marion might not be as picturesque, vacation destination in beautiful Vermont, but it is absolutely like working hard. There's a lot of great energy there. So we're
when
so
you see where Marion has gone in the last few years, it's been exponential step forward.
yeah.
And so this story is going to be it's a really good story to tell.
All right, everyone. Well, it's great to chat with you. Norm will be back next week, but I always love getting to hang out with these enthusiastic Strong Towns members. So thank you. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And thanks always to Edward. Good to see you all. All right. Take care.